Kirsten, Youth Services Librarian for the downtown Bremerton location of Kitsap Regional Library. Today, I would like to talk about and show you papier-mâché. Now, papier-mâché actually literally means chewed paper, and we are not going to do that. No, ew. Now, papier-mâché has actually been in use since 200 BC. It started in China. And what we're going to do today is find out how easy it is to make something out of papier-mâché. Now, what you do is you just take half a cup of flour and a cup of water. Now, what papier-mâché, the paste is, it's a ratio of 2 parts water to 1 part of flour. And I decided to use a 1 cup measure and a half cup measure. So we have 1 cup of water to 1/2 cup of flour. So that's 2 to 1. And I had some friends who had very, very, very old flour that could no longer be used for baking or eating. So I wouldn't want to just eat flour, would you? Anyway, so they gave it to me and I was able to use it to make all sorts of papier-mâché things. So what I did was I stirred my papier-mâché, I stirred my flour and my water together in this long, skinny container until it made sort of a batter. We call it a paste, but it actually looks a lot like pancake batter. And you want to get the lumps out if you can, because you don't want your papier-mâché to be lumpy, but it does happen. So if your papier-mâché ends up being lumpy, don't worry, please don't worry. What I have found is that when I use papier-mâché on a balloon, and I'm just going to use a balloon because it's possibly the easiest way to start making something out of papier-mâché, is I found that it would roll all over the table. So I started taking some aluminum foil and I would tear some off of the roll and roll it up like this. And if you bend it into a smiley face, if you bend it into a smile and just curve the edges a little bit more, you can make it into a C, however you're seeing this. You can use that as a stand for your balloon when you are covering it with papier-mâché, because look what happens if I have a few strips of papier-mâché on here, papier-mâché. So if I just, it almost rolled off the table. So wherever you put the paste-soaked paper, it's going to make that part of the balloon or whatever you use for your object, it's going to make that very heavy. So what I've done, because I like to recycle so much, I have taken a bunch of catalogs and newspapers and magazines, and I've torn them into strips that I am using to cover my balloon. Now you'll notice that I'm using my hands, and what I'm doing is I have my strips of paper sitting in the paste, and then I just get the excess paste off like that. If you end up with a lot of paste on your balloon and it gets kind of soggy and wet, do not worry, because you can always put dry strips on top and soak up the paste that way. Now, if you don't like the feel of the paste on your hands, no problem. It's always okay to wear gloves. I just kind of like playing with papier-mâché paste. So that's why I'm not wearing gloves today. And the thing is, what I've done is, you'll notice that I'm kind of spraying a few papier-mâché paste drops all over the place, because I tend to be messy, but I think that no matter how neat and tidy you are, you always may end up with bits of papier-mâché paste flying around. So go ahead and wear something that can get messy. The papier-mâché paste does wash out, but I tend to wear maybe t-shirt and jeans, or maybe an apron. Wear something that will protect your clothes, and definitely don't wear anything really nice when you're working with papier-mâché paste, because it can get kind of goopy. Now, I didn't show you my table, but I actually have covered my table. You might notice that my table doesn't look like a table, really, does it? It has stuff on it. So I have covered my table with plastic wrap. And then over the plastic wrap, I have put pages from those catalogs, the pages I didn't tear up. And then over that, because I wanted my paper mache stand, my little C here, to show up against the table, I went ahead and used some tissue paper. Now, you may use tissue paper to put on your paper, you know, to dip in the paste and use for your paper mache, but I've discovered that it depends on the tissue paper, but some of it is so thin that it tears when you try to put it in the paste or take it out. So I would recommend using regular newspaper strips or strips from catalogs. Now, the reason I have a long skinny container is because these fit so well. I'll show you. Look how well these strips fit in this long skinny container. They fit really well in there. So that's why I'm using this long skinny container, but it doesn't matter what kind of container you have at home. You may use any kind of container. I have used a small bowl, and that is all right too. Oh, there we go. And notice how I'm smoothing down the strips, even though I've run the strips through my fingers to get the paste off, I'm still going to smooth them down on top of the balloon. Now, no matter what happens, oh, look at that, and see how my balloon is not rolling off the table. I'm very happy about that. Okay, whoa. Now what happens if I accidentally put way too much paste on one of those strips and it just starts rolling off the balloon and it just starts looking really, really soggy? Well, you can actually take a dry strip. You can take a dry strip of paper and put it over pages that are really a piece of paper that's really, really soggy, and it will soak up all of that excess paste and make it much less soggy. We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to show you a couple of things that I've made. One fun thing about paper mache is that you can experiment with it. Now, this is a paper mache. This is only 2 layers. Every day, if I'm making something big out of paper mache, I put 2 layers of paste covered strips over my whole balloon or whatever I'm using. And this has 2 layers on it. I made this a couple of days ago. But this one has actually 4 layers, and it has a top layer. Now, this is going to be a cat eventually. And what I did for the final layer of my cat, I actually used packing paper. Now, this was a bit thicker than I anticipated, so it made my cat a little bit lumpy. But I could put some more strips of this in the paste and put them on here to smooth that out. Now, I was thinking about painting my cat. But what happens if I would rather cover my cat with this very pretty tissue paper? Let's see. Remember that I can't leave the tissue paper in the paste for very long, but it might be pretty to have a rose-colored cat, wouldn't it? So you can use, because I don't have paint at home, and I know that some of you probably don't either. I do have, let's see. I have food coloring at home. I could actually use food coloring and use that to paint, use food coloring to paint my paper mache cat if I wanted to. There we go. Now that's rather pretty tissue paper. I wonder if I am just going to, I might just go ahead and cover my whole cat with tissue paper. Now, how did I make these ears and those feet and the nose? It'll have whiskers eventually. Well, what I did was I took a tube. Now, this is a wrapping paper tube, but I've used wrapping paper tubes, and I've also used paper towel tubes from my paper towel rolls in the kitchen. Now, depending on how old you are, and I'm sure most of you watching this video are fine with scissors, and your parents will have no problem with using scissors. I've just been cutting my paper towel tube. Notice how far away from the scissors my hand is when I'm holding the tube. Yeah, make sure there's plenty of space. Don't want any cut fingers. And end up with 2 little pieces. And what I did was I just went ahead and cut some ears. Now your ears don't have to be perfect. They could be ears, you know, this size. They could be, oh, they could be triangular ears if you wanted triangular ears. Now I'm getting a little close to my fingers, but I'm being very careful with my scissors. They could be this. And then what I do is I just take some tape. You can use regular tape, masking tape, or duct tape. Masking tape works the best, I find. Duct tape, sometimes your paper mache paste doesn't stick as well to duct tape as it does to masking tape, which seems kind of strange. And then what I do is I went ahead and I taped the ears in place, and then I covered them with strips of paste covered paper to make those ears and the nose and for the feet. Now you can also use for the legs, you can also use plastic cups if you want to. Plastic cups might not be the best idea, but you can also use waxed paper cups. They work very, very well for noses and snouts and feet and things. And what I did was I just took, and see how I cut that at an angle. And if I wanted to make this into some sort of animal, I would tape this to this piece of paper mache, and notice how my round ball can be, see, it's going to stand up just fine. Actually, let's do one more of those so you can see what I'm talking about. Now I said I'm working with a wrapping paper tube, and that's just because I ran out of paper towel tubes. Paper towel tubes are much easier to work with, and I recommend working with those. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any masking tape at home, and that's how I discovered that. Perhaps duct tape wasn't the best. For sticking paste to. So what I'm going to do is take my balloon now remember, this is only 2 layers of paper mache on this balloon, so I have to be a little bit careful. I don't want to push too hard. I don't want to break through the paste that I have there. And I need one more piece of this, so we'll get one more piece of that. There we go. Now it's a little off balance, but if I put on 2 more legs, it'll be perfect. So I think I might go ahead and put 2 more legs on this. So you can go ahead and make your own legs for your paper mache. Oh, there it goes. It's standing on its own. Yay! Now you can experiment. I thought, what if I wanted to make a paper mache bowl, but I didn't want to do what a lot of people do, which is cover a bowl, turn a bowl upside down and cover it with aluminum foil and then put cooking spray, or you can even put Vaseline on top of the aluminum foil, or you can put plastic wrap over a bowl. I thought, what would happen? What would happen? I'm not sure. So you are going to find out with me. I've been waiting. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh goodness, look at that. Wow, we didn't need to use any sort of thing to keep our balloon from sticking. So now I have a bowl. What I did was put the end of the balloon in a little container like that. Oops. And I made it very still and stationary. And I drew a line around the balloon so that I could make my bowl. There are so many ways you can experiment with paper mache. Go ahead and try some. You can even make wonderful shakers with those and use all sorts of things inside. Now, cleanup. Oh, we don't have to talk about cleanup, do we? Oh, I hope not. Goodness. I hope all of you will experiment with your 2 parts water to 1 part flour and make some paper mache things today. I wonder how my cat will turn out. Maybe I'd better finish it covering it, and maybe I should take a picture and put it on our website, krl.org. Now, at krl.org/virtual or /summer, you'll find out about a lot more things that we have for you, a lot more videos too. So thank you for joining me today, and have a good summer.